Online church has been a very foreign concept to us here at Citipointe and has presented us with some very unique challenges, to say the least. Some of those really just being the restrictions and the unknown of the week to week and what's going to happen. So we had to come up with a solution that wasn't just able to be scaled, but also shrunk and still give us the same outcome week to week. Now, we decided actually not to go live, and the reasoning behind that was it hit that first problem, the week to week of the unknown. So for a church that actually hasn't really ever gone live before, for us to start investing all this time, energy, even finances into trying to go live and pull off a really quality service, trying first with 20 people and then the next week we might only be allowed 5, wasn't really a smart solution for us. So we actually decided to pre-record the whole service. And we decided this because it actually gives us the most flexibility in pulling off the most quality and creative service. We have put together a little behind the scenes video because I just wish, one, that this kind of existed when this all started. So I thought, you know what? There's still not a lot out there. So I thought, let's make one and show what we've actually done, because there's a lot on how to live stream a church service, but that's not what we're doing. We're pre-recording. It's completely different. It's different tools, different methods, different thinking sometimes behind it, because you're not confined to a live, you are in control. You can cut to in the wilderness with your pastor, to the praise and worship on a rooftop. Probably not. We haven't done that, but maybe it's something I'm trying to get over the line. If anyone's interested, you know, it could be a great idea. So I've broken this video into two parts, which you will see the production side. So this is the recording, this is the filming, this is all that wonderful stuff, which you're about to meet some awesome people, and they'll tell you probably a bit better detail than what I have about how we handle the production of our online service.
My name's Brett, and I'm going to be talking about the way we've been recording our services while we've been in lockdown. So the recording hangs off of a console. So depending on where we're recording, if we're recording in our main auditorium, we will hang off the monitor desk and we'll use Dante straight into the laptop, and we'll record that to Pro Tools. If we're recording in another room, so on Sunday we recorded up in our green room, we took our little SQ console and we took that up there and we used that as our interface to get the audio into Pro Tools. It's really important that when you're tracking, you need to have an idea of what the goal of the recording is. So for us, obviously, it's going to video. And so the things that we're recording have to make sense on the video. So if we're recording in a really nice timber room, but the recording sounds like we're in a really dead studio, then the people watching it are going to feel a little bit disconnected by that. So we've got to make sense of that. So that helps to guide our mic placement, our mic choices, that sort of thing. We work with the live sound guys as well, being very conscious of what we're hearing through every mic. When we're preparing, when we're recording, I'm really listening for what's it going to be like to mix as well. So when the person down the line is mixing it, have I given them good tracks to mix so that it's easy, or have I forced them to spend hours of editing to try and make something work? Okay, so what I'm doing with the console is we come in through the normal mic pre's. We set the level. It's really important that we're getting a nice consistent level in here. So on this board, on our Allen & Heath SQ, I aim for about 0 dB on the meters. Once we've got a decent gain level set, we're taking a direct output via the USB port over to the laptop. And that's it. So all I want out of this console for the recording side of things is a decent level. I'm not EQing anything. I'm not compressing anything. I just want the signal clean into Pro Tools at a decent level. There is a bit of difference between where the meters are calibrated on here and where they are in Pro Tools. Pro Tools is looking at dB full scale. So if you clip on that, you're peaking. The Allen and Heath, the way they've set their meters, is a little bit more generous. They've got a lot of headroom in there, which is nice because you're not going to digital clip anything in there internally. It just means that there will be a slight difference between what I'm seeing on the meters in Pro Tools, or sometimes a significant difference between what I'm seeing in Pro Tools and what I'm seeing in the Allen and Heath. Once I have it in Pro Tools, then what I'll do is I'll do a quick mix, just so I can hear things in context. I'll put a little bit of EQ on. If I feel like in post we're going to boost a bit of top end on the vocal, I'll actually do that here to see if it pulls out any unusual noises or things that I haven't heard normally. So things that it's going to accentuate. I want to be able to hear them at this stage so that if we can, we'll go and fix them on the mic. Maybe the mic position in the room, or its relation to another instrument. Drums are something that's quite tricky when it comes to recording live vocals when there's a live drum kit playing. And then I'll do a rough mix in here. I'll be listening to my rough mix back out through just a stereo input on the board. That way I can hear if Pro Tools is playing up. I can go in and solo channels as I need to. So if I just want to hear what that particular vocal is doing, I can go in and I can solo it and hear it clearly, and it doesn't affect anything else that's happening. Usually, and my preferred way of listening is through a normal set of headphones, a decent set of headphones that I know well, so I know what things are sounding like. And also, if the environment is a bit noisier, then I'll go for my in-ears because they provide more isolation and give me a truer picture of what the mic's actually capturing. When the performance is happening, that's when I'm taking notes. I have my trusty notepad here because I want to help the mix engineer as much as I can. So I'm going to write down what take number it is, and then I'm just going to be writing notes as we go. So things to look out for, things that were really good. And then at the end of the session, what I'll do is I'll save it, I'll back it up, and then I'll send it off to the mix engineer. And they can, if they have any questions, they can ask me. I'll also send all my notes as well, so that helps them. It can help speed up the process so that they're not looking through for the best take or things like that. So, so that's how we go with the recording.
Welcome to Lighting for Church Online. There's two major differences between a Sunday service and an online service. Is Sunday we normally go for like a concert-like vibe where lights are moving all over the place because you can see more when you're physically in the auditorium. You can see all the lights moving, all the cool stuff happening. Where online you're really limited to what's shown on screen. It's normally key profile shots of like the singers, the voice, maybe the whole background area. So our little thought process has changed since a normal Sunday where we normally go for, okay, what can we take these lights and make them look cool? So mostly they're moving around, doing stuff as a person in the auditorium is like seeing this and like, wow, this is cool. As online, you're not going to really see that because cameras are not going to be looking where the lights are coming from. They're just going to see parts of the beam. So we have to think a lot differently where we can't really do any moving stuff, but we can still give it a little bit of moving as well. So we've got our theme. So we've got our orange and blue theme. So what I've decided to do is let's try and get the backwash sorted out so we know what we're playing around. So I was messing around with the MK2 lights. So they're going to be our little backwashes where they're going to be shining directly behind the singers, musicians, which is going to give kind of that glow effect. So I decided to add the profile lights of where the singers are going to be. So they've got some key highlights, so they're a bit brighter than the rest of the scene. So now we're going to add some mood lighting. What I mean, this is like little beams of light since we're running smoke where you can see it twinkling like a little fan, little spots, just to give it a bit more vibe. So we're going to add some pixels, which is pretty much just a giant LED bar. So if they're filming at the black drapes, for example, they're going to see it's not just going to be color than just black. They're going to have a graduated color feel of where the colors are just going to blend to black. So once I've done that, I need to give them light in the front because they're pretty much dark right now. So what I've done is add some wash. Another thing we can do, since we've got a little nice LED border around them, we can accompany the color vibes. So what I've done is given them the 2 color palettes of the blue and the orange, and it's going to look really nice blending in with the media that's playing on the LED screens. That's pretty much how we're running Church Online. It's pretty much Sunday service, but it's more designed for the cameras, for your viewing experience as instead of the auditorium one. So we're not focusing people in the room, we're focusing you guys at home.
Hey, I'm Tim. I'm going to run us through the multimedia processes for Citipointe Church Online. We use ProPresenter 6, and pretty much the practical outworking was that instead of being in the VCR room, we have had to move down to side of stage so the iMac is in view of Pastor Mark while he was preaching, and we'll pretty much have to just work with what he's saying and keep up with that, changing slides, changing the videos according to that. For example, one of the slides that we did, we had animations taking place in the background that went along with the statistics that he was explaining. Just another creative way that we could showcase. And with the small team that is allowed to be in the building, we had to automate all of our praise and worship animations to cater for that. Lower thirds we were able to do and edit during the week.
Hey guys, I just thought we'd give you a quick run through of how we've had the stage set up through all these different and varying restrictions. Obviously at the moment you'll notice we've got our 3 2 meter by 2 meter LED screens. We've been really liking them so far because we can, it really is a centerpiece of this set. We can put a lot of animations and media behind all of our different musicians, even some preachers we may do further on down the track down here as well. So obviously that's our biggest difference, along with this lovely shiny stage, something that we've been sitting on for a while, but it presents some challenges for an ordinary Sunday service. But we've been really liking it for online church because you get some really cool reflections from both the LED screen, any of the LED lights we have had on the floor as well, adds a little bit more dimension and depth. As you may notice around the edges, these panels just straight on carpet floor, love to go for a bit of a walk. So gaff tape wasn't just enough. So some lovely cinder blocks. I can't even remember what those are made of. They're really heavy, just to try and stop things from moving around. Without having a congregation in the room means we can put plenty of things in the way of the pews. So you'll notice some of our lighting as well that we've just been rolling around unpackers to places that we need to make sure that we're, getting rid of people's panda eyes from lighting too high up. Some of the other changes you'll notice for any of our audio guys and anyone who recognises the D-Live usually sits over in this hole here. We found with some of our LED designs, there was a big LED screen right in the way, trying to do sound check, couldn't see anyone. So thankfully it's a couple of cables. We've been able to smooth the surface over there, which makes life a lot easier. As well as just down here in the corner, you'll notice the iMac that we've pulled out of the VCR from upstairs, running all the LED screens like we do for a conference event. But just to save us running cables upstairs, being able to see easily what media looks like on the screens and not having someone in the VCR all on their lonesome, we've just moved him down here to make life super simple.
Hey guys, welcome to the set. I'm B. Wren, I'm here on team in the film department, and today I'm gonna show you through our little setup here. So this is our preach setup, so this is just standard setup. So we've got our wide angle on the side with our 90D and our dolly. So it just kind of sets the context. And then we've got our main camera over here, C200, with our teleprompter and our iPad. So we just use that for mainly scriptures. Just means that the preacher can read off the teleprompter straight into the camera, keep the audience engaged. And then we've got our Blackmagic over here with our close-up shots, just good zoom. And then, so this is our setup. We've got our screen here, so it just makes sure that we can see everything. So with praise and worship, we would usually do our easy rig with the C200 and a gimbal, and we've got a shotgun mic as well, and we usually use our audio, so like I've got a lav one which goes into the main camera. So remember, there's different tools for every job, so like right now we're using 3 cameras, but there's situations where we only use 1, and it's just about getting the shot, getting the story.
So the post-production side now is probably my favorite part of the process, because it's where you take everything you filmed, everything you recorded, and you bring it to life essentially. You make it complete, and that's where it goes online. So the general flow of how we go is that everything gets filmed, it gets put on our own server, which we have, which then the team all access, and that's where they get the audio if they need to edit the audio, that's where they get the video files, and then it all syncs up in Final Cut later, and it works pretty well. But we've got Dan to show you that, we've got Chris to show you audio. It's a pretty awesome part, post-production. So please check this out.
Hi, I'm Dan. I've been editing Church Online for the last couple of weeks, so I'm just going to run you through how we edit a service. So we edit in Final Cut Pro, and we do all our effects and graphics in After Effects, but mainly Final Cut Pro. So in our before our service starts, we're just going to call it our pre-show for this, or pre-roll. We just have a bunch of slides, which is just generic stuff that we just rotate every 3 to 5 seconds, nothing fancy. And then we go into a pre-show, which we have online hosts. It's all pre-recorded, but they have a cool segment, which is pretty funny. So we've just got a cool little element graphics here that we've created, or Tim's created, and we just roll with that. We've got branding for it. But what's really cool in the pre-show segment is we have this segment called On the Line, which we interview location pastors. And the way that we interview our location pastors is we use Zoom to facilitate the call, and then we get the location pastors to record on the best quality device they have, which is normally an iPhone. So what we do with this is, if I just jump into our editing software, we have that phone footage loaded into our Final Cut editing software, and then we just replace that over top of the actual Zoom call recording that we record, and then we get a nice HD high quality version with good, decent sounding audio, which is, I think, passable for online experience. So we go from pre-show into our generic 3-minute countdown, and then we start with a Citipointe Church Welcome to Church bumper video. Now, there's one reason why we do this, to cut to a point, which is give us branding. People know that it's the intro, and we can just remove all the pre-stuff. So from the bumper intro, we go into our hosting session, which is done for this week by Tim and Wendy. And they just facilitate the service, they talk about announcements, and they just guide us through the scaffolding, just basically the structure of our Church Online service. And then we do lower thirds for them, which basically has information like what they're announcing, giving, and so much more. That's done in After Effects, done by our graphics or Tim, and we just get that and we just throw it in. It's just a nice little animation that just goes forwards and backwards, and it's pretty cool. And then from our hosting session, we jump straight into Praise and Worship, which was actually cool this week because we had our no-co locations send us Praise and Worship. So they just sent us Praise and Worship. They gave us 3 cameras and 1 take, so we just cut that together. And that's pretty much Praise and Worship. We chuck lyrics on, nothing too fancy. It's basically essentially doing a live switch on a normal Sunday, just for online. So a part of our Mother's Day celebration moment is we had an item. And inside of this item, we had 16 camera angles, and we like to shoot at least have 8 angles. Doesn't matter how many takes we do, we just like to have 8 because it just gives us enough footage and coverage to be able to cut between. Now, when you're editing multi-camming, or at least with a song, you have heaps of camera angles. So for this, we had 5 takes with 3 cameras, which is just 16 video inputs. So we use this software, which just allows us to synchronize everything just like that. As you can see, it's pretty much done in the time I talked about it. So that's basically synced. We export this as an XML and we just throw it in, and our basically cameras are synced and we just cut. So we're going to roll into our preach. So for Mother's Day, we had a creative approach with cooking. So our preach for this service was just a cooking segment. So it starts off, we just did like a small little B-roll just to basically say, hey, we're at a house, we're in a kitchen, this is what we're doing. And we just branded it Mum's Lee's Recipe. So that's pretty much it, just B-roll. We put some hypey up music just to give it some little bit of lift and some. So we just set up 3 camera angles because more camera angles we have, the better. So we had wide, medium, close, so we just variate just to give us options. So if we need to cut and pause, we can always go to something else to make it as streamlined as possible. And then we rolled into a 3-person interview. We had Joel and Sav, and so we had 1 camera on Joel and Sav, we had 1 camera on Lee, and 1 grabbing group shot, and then we just cut between them cooking. This is just a short overview, at least how we put our services together. We have our pre-show, our worship set, hosting, preach, and so on. We're always after different ways to creatively adjust or make the online experience better by adding items or different segments, or at least adding different elements if it's graphics or sound, or just spicing up the way that we film things. So I hope that you got something out of this, and see you later.
Yeah, great.
Dab.
Hi, I'm Chris from Citipointe, and I work in the post-production audio department here for Online Church. And during the week, we do many recordings that's required for online church. And they would include preaching sessions, hosting sessions, podcast sessions, pre-show sessions, and any other out in the field type sessions that we might record during the week as well. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to step you through just the basic fundamental process of how we deal with our audio files here. So the very first one I do is I come and I take a look at our waveform. Now in Adobe Audition, which is the software that we use here in post-audio production, is we can use noise reduction and we can capture the noise. I've already done that here so it doesn't highlight, but we can capture the noise. So I just highlight a quiet section. So we've implemented a 5-second rule now. Before we do our clapperboard, we do 5 seconds so we can get a very quiet section of the audio file to be able to capture the noise. It could be air conditioners, it could be hiss and noise from wireless mics, all those sorts of ambient type things that we don't want in our recording. So we then come and capture that, and then we apply a noise reduction to it. Now the noise reduction is really important. It takes away things that we don't want in the recording that can be annoyance from start to finish, and it really cleans it up. Now once we've cleaned up the background noise in our recording, the next process is to essentially adjust those levels. So what I have is I have a plug-in here called One Knob Louder Stereo, and I'll just show you that. Here it is here. This is what I use. It's a Waves plug-in just to readjust to bring up my levels on that whole track. Before I do anything, I just get that level set in place, get myself up to about -3 on average, and then we take it from there. Then our next process is we want to take control of those dynamic peaks. Particularly in broadcasts, we need to really address those dynamic peaks because people can be listening to it on their headphones. And the last thing we want is we don't want those loud peaks to become aggressive or obnoxious or even painful to the listener, particularly if they're listening on headphones. So we apply some compression here. Now, I'll just play this track very quickly and you'll be able to see what my compressor is doing.
Influence your world for good and for God. My name is Chris Ansby and I am the host of this podcast, and today I have the privilege of sitting here with Chris Burrell and John Rudder.
So with my compressor here, essentially I'm not applying too much compression ratio because I don't want to squash it down too much, and I'm setting my threshold so that I'm just sort of capturing 3 dB, 6 dB maximum. Now this R compressor from Renaissance is very good because it's very transparent, so you can apply a reasonable amount of compression without it sounding like it's pumping. Now the very next process is I always put de-essing, because the de-essing, again, if you're listening on headphones or on TVs with speakers that are more sort of pronounced in the area of the S's, that comes with the human voice. Not everybody has a problem with that, but some people have a problem with the S-ing in their speech more than others. So I always apply a little bit of de-essing. We've got to be careful not to go too hard because it takes away too many frequencies. But here in particular, this particular person's very, very heavy at 3K, just over 3K. So I've applied a bit of de-essing right here at 3K. And it's really smooths out the voice, but without losing the intelligibility of their spoken speech. And then the next process, again, because we're typically recording with lapel mics or lavaliers, we quite often get a lot of reverb. Now, in this room, in this recording right now, this room is quite reverberant, so I'll be applying this to this vlog that you're watching. To take some of those tails out of the room so it doesn't sound like I'm talking to you inside a cave. This step here is really important because it does clean up and give intelligence to the speech, makes the speech a lot clearer to understand by applying some de-reverbing. It's important not to apply too much because it will colour the sound or take too much of the sound away, but it is really dramatically effective, especially if you've got omnidirectional lapel mics or a recording that's got a lot of room reverberation in it. Then the next stage after I've set that platform is to apply some overall EQ just to get rid of, generally I take a subtractive approach. to start with, and then we look at enhancing from there. So I take away the things that I don't like. Now, in this particular recording, up here at position number 3, at 659 hertz, there was a bit too much there, and it sounded quite boxy. So I've actually reduced that and pulled that down. You'll see at position number 1 at 146, I've actually added there to actually bring some warmth and some podcast sort of strength to the vocal chain. Also, you might see here this high pass filter. This high pass filter is really helpful. It's one of the first things that I do is to wind in the high pass filter. It gets rid of the rumble and all the sort of booming or sort of taps on tables or taps on mic stands, and it rolls that off. You just got to be careful not to set it too high because you'll take that low end warmth out of the voice. But if you've got a bit of boom in that low end, that very low frequencies around 100 hertz or below, you can wind that up a lot further. You'll be surprised how far you can wind it up to get rid of things like that. And one of the final stages that we work on is to put in some limiting. And again, it's something that's very different to live audio, and my background is predominantly in live audio. And in the broadcast world, and certainly online, we need to apply limiting because if we don't apply limiting, the platforms that we host these things on will, and their limiting will be far more intrusive than our limiting will be. So if we can apply really good limiting at this stage, we can find that when we do get posted, their online limiting is not really apparent. So it's important to do that here. And it actually increases our overall level quite significantly because we really want to get up close to that 0 dB, have the majority of what's going on at -6 to 0 dB. So one final tip that I'd like to leave you with is it's very, very important to have a backup audio recording. So when we go onto a site or into an environment and we're using lapels or handheld mics or any of those sorts of things, we always have a backup audio recording and a backup audio track. Now, our method for that and our choice for that is to use a Rode NTG shotgun mic, and that will be a dedicated separate recording channel, and it's our backup. It's a very good shotgun mic, and it's proven worth its while on a number of occasions, just for those times where the unplanned happens, the unforeseeable happens, and it does happen from time to time, and you can't go back and reshoot. And generally you won't find that out until later on. So it's really important to have a backup audio recording.
So I hope that has given you a little bit of insight into what goes on for our online service experiences. Once again, in the description, you can have a look at any of the jump and the timestamps of each part. We'll have it all separated down there. Leave a comment. I'll respond as best as I can. Or hit me up on Instagram. Obviously, I can respond there as well. And I'll pass you on to one of our awesome team members. So hopefully this has helped. Once again, if you're doing an online church experience, I just want to say you're doing awesome. There is no handbook for this at all. We just wanted to put that out there to help you and your church or whatever you're doing. I hope you've learned something. And yeah, all the best.